Okay, and the next one you had, I think this is from a discussion you were having, is people. It's kind of related, so we have a lot of related topics today. It's dealing with the different API calls. Like, I think people want to model the fact that processing maybe a Stripe payment is different than a PayPal payment.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's what you're getting. So we have, we have this different APIs. I might be
Yeah, this
doing
this
this
was
opposite order, but that's okay. I think.
this was a question. So I asked in the Discord,
Mhm.
what are topics we should discuss in the podcast, and one of them was the question: we have many different APIs that we call, all look the same, but they are not the same. How would you model that in an event model? And we kind of had the same discussion this morning. Also, we have this API that we call. How do we reach out? It's always people seem to have a difficulty integrating external APIs into the event model, combining it with event modeling. Although it's pretty simple because in the end, if it's an external API, my brain immediately tells me it's just another processor in the model.
Yeah.
Whenever
Yeah.
there is an external API, don't make it more complicated than it has to be. Whenever someone mentions external API, it's immediately a processor. I don't need to think about it. It's always the same. No
Yeah.
additional patterns or something.
Yeah. Yeah. I think so too, and I think yeah, like I think people get caught in the fact that the implementation may be different, where you have maybe a RESTful API for one service, and then you have some other GraphQL thing, or who knows what, some custom post to a form, or uh, I don't know.
Or this,
Could
this
be.
morning, this morning the example was good because there was one processor that had to reach out to all cloud providers. So one processor had to fetch data from AWS, from GCP, basically from everywhere. So
Yeah. So those would be separate processors for each type.
exactly.
Yeah.
So these processes that reach out, that it basically represent the APIs, they should be simple, they should be small. If you have one processor that reaches out to all cloud providers, for me, immediately all alarm bells ring. It shouldn't
Yeah.
be that complicated. They should be simple. Processes should be simple, both in the model and in the implementation, typically.
Yeah. Exactly. And then that's just um, a blue arrow above me. Actually, I don't have my blue arrows shown in my there. My background now shows everything more properly.
So for me, when I'm modeling it, it's always the processor. So I think about it like the processor does the API call, and then the processor puts the additional information onto the command. So for me, the logic doesn't happen in the command handler; it happens in the processor. It fetches the information and then puts
Yes,
the information onto the command. So you
that's
really
right.
see exactly, okay, here is the additional information that is coming into the system.
Yeah, exactly. And so when I'm faced with this question, a lot of times I go back to what is the information flow. So a lot of times people might get confused because, well, if this is the result from this API call, then don't I have an internal event to represent it? And why should I put it in a separate swim lane that sits in this external services swim lane? So that really doesn't matter to me. I'm always of the uh, mindset that the yellow stickies, or orange if you're using them for events, really show where the data lives. So the minute that the API comes back with something, the information lives in the information still lives in that old system until you translate it and have it live somewhere else inside, right? So if you're looking at the event model as um, a map of where information lives, that's fine. But at the same time, I could say if I really don't care about that, I could have it immediately sit you know, in the regular swim lane for the system. But I like to put it down to a level that I can visually see that, in these workflows, I'm interacting with PayPal and all these steps across this whole thing. So visually, I can grab that. It tells me right away that I have an external call here. Um, but there's something to really keep in mind, because one of the things about event modeling is to also use the events as where the implementation exists. So if you have information from an external system and you have a green box somewhere that uses just that information, or uses that information plus some other information, you have to understand that you have more implementation to kind of keep that the information you get back from the API call in a specific system you own, and that will now be dictated by the rest of the events that are um, adding to that same green box, right? One exception is if the green box is only built on what the API returns and nothing else. I haven't seen this very often. Now you have something that's ambiguous as to where you want to put it, because the green box, where the implementation for a green box lives, is always dictated by where the events that it subscribes to live.
Yeah.
Right. And that's why we have extra processors for like pub sub and all that. So if you have a green box that aggregates information from, let's say, some external API calls, and then some other a processor that populates that to-do list or whatever, then you have to show where, well, let's just say another one. You have two internal services, and that's this to-do list gathers information from two of your own services. You have to have an extra processor to say that I'm publishing information from one to the other, because you have to think about, well, where's this processor going to actually be deployed to? You have two services, A and B. You have information coming from A, you have information coming from B. So is this going to be a table in system A or system B? And is that implementation going to be deployed when you make a new version of system A, or is it going to be deployed when you make system B? Either choice, you're going to have another processor to show that information travels from A to B for that to actually live and be deployable in one of those. So this actually isn't a technical discussion. It's about which system is transforming the information or using the information. It works the same on pen and paper. If I have two departments, one in room A and one in room B, and we have to coordinate how we're going to put information from two forms, that one is from this department, one's from this department, I have to ask them, am I going to your desk or are you coming to my desk to work on this?
Who owns it?
Where are we going to do the work?
Yeah.
We can get a desk to sit down and do this, right? So so this is not a technical question. It's about where does the information live? So you have to realize that the event model is really there for you to kind of be able to discuss such things. And this is one of the rules behind a green box, that that is logic that has to be executed somewhere. So the default rule is, where do all the events that populate this green box, where are they? And if they're in two different services, you need to make a decision that you're going to move some information from this service to the other, so that you can say that this green box executes in this service. There's no other way out of it. Like, I'm not inventing a pattern here, but it's like you have to make a decision. What are you going to deploy, to what service, right? Are you going to be working on a desk in department A or department B?
Yeah.
And if you're working in the other, you have to show that there's a process by which someone walks from room A to room B to do the work in room B. And in their hand, they have that copy to go and do the work.
You need to show how does the information flow from this one room to the other room. There needs to be a way. You can't just assume it goes there magically.
Exactly. And that's we try to make these magical leaps because we think, this doesn't live anywhere, or we're doing serverless. It's like, no, it's still a deployment. You need to know what lives with what.
Yeah.
You still have bounded contexts. You still have service boundary. You still have a physical boundary. You have all of these things to deal with, and they're all ways that organize your information and where it lives and where it gets processed. So, that's kind of a related subject with these external calls because it's a common question. Well, does that only live in the command on the event model? Does that only live on the event? Does that only live in a green box because whatever reason, ask yourself these questions. What is the event model serving? What purpose is it? If I hand this off to developers, do they know that the green box must execute here in service A or service B? Which team is working on it? A lot of times we have Conway's law. These swim lanes for different services, are correlated to teams and inter-team communication, right? And how they're going to build those systems.
Yeah.
So I think that's anything else about external APIs?
I think this topic will come up anyways again. So if I had to guess, I think that is the topic we discussed the most in the last few weeks in the Discord. It comes up again and again, and I think in the podcast it will also come up again. So if we forget something, we will discuss it again.
And I think the shortcuts are always skipping the core problem, because we have a whole bunch of other ways in different modeling techniques of how to show these external calls. But I think the answer out of that is to really ignore the how, which is, I think, where most deviate and go and say they try to describe the GraphQL, the RESTful API, the whatever. And if you just take a step back and say what information lives where at what time, I think a lot of this goes away entirely. And then you let the developers instantiate that adapter for whatever call they're going to do, and let them have the freedom, right? That's what the event model does, is that because it doesn't make an opinion of those details. You can make a note afterward, on that service. I usually make those notes on the left-hand side of the event model on the very start of the swim lane, that, hey, this is a RESTful API. Here's the IP address of the QA server. Here's how you deploy to that. Whatever technical info is, just small, tiny notes in a very tiny font on the left. And that's fine. The main event model concentrates on how the information flows to the system and what the features are, how are people getting value from the system. Yeah, that's it. So that's
I agree with putting it on the left. I typically put it below the slices. So I put it below, but it doesn't really matter as long as you don't put it in the middle of the event model and make the technology part of it. I wouldn't.
Yeah, the reason I don't put it in the below is because I may have multiple places where I'm making that call to the PayPal service. So I don't want someone to have to fish out the implementation details from one place.
Yeah,
that's why I ended up putting it in the row.
That makes sense.
Okay, this is a PayPal row. So no matter what interacts with it along the way, I have that information about how that service is stood up there.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if you would have multiple different ways of instantiating a service depending on where you are in the workflow. I think I might be drawn to not having that, or if I might even have a different swim lane for that. I don't know. Maybe a refund on PayPal is a different API call, but I think it's the same swim lane. I would still. I don't know what your thoughts are about having it on the left-hand side of the swim lane. The other reason that I like to have it on the left hand of the swim lane is that when I have 5 different services, I have the details for how each one is deployed and where they live all kind of together in that spot. So I'm, again, not hunting left and right throughout the entire event model, how that service or how those services are deployed, et cetera, and all those details. I kind of want to see it. I made that decision a long time ago. I'm not sure. I don't think anyone has a problem with it. I think it's a matter of a matter of preference,
style and preference. So I started to do it basically. I put this information in the first slice that uses it. So if you have a slice that introduces a PayPal API, the first slice has this information in a dedicated section in this slice. It's just how I started to do it, and for me it works well. But having it on the left side also makes a lot of sense to me. So
yeah, and you can always add those links even in Miro that just flies to a different part. So
that's what I do. In other slices, also using PayPal, I have simply links pointing back to the first slice, so you can easily navigate, and then that works also very well.
Yeah, as the tooling evolves and the automation you're putting on top of Miro and all these other tools evolve, those will be little hints and things that you can expand and contract, and they all will be out of your way. the reason that we make this that we discuss this topic is most people, well, event modeling and all of these collaborative approaches come from the physical world of putting stickies on the wall. And
Yeah.
there you have to make these decisions because you don't have automation to, you know, quickly move something out of the way or make something disappear and reappear whenever you want. You're dealing with physical paper and markers. So you got to be efficient with what you do there. And so
I guess on a physical board, I would also put it to the left because it's there. It's really more efficient. But
you
it's
might have you might be running out of space too, right? With physical walls, we, you know, think about every time you've done an event model and you want to put in a large piece of new workflow in the middle. It's a team effort to to grab
oh
those
yeah,
stickies and move them
horrible,
over.
horrible.
You kind of want to actually cut the parchment paper and just insert a new piece of paper in the middle. But when it's on a whiteboard, man, all those stickies are traveling by themselves.
Yeah.
So,
It's been quite a while since I did a modeling session on a physical board, but I just bought the tickets to Como Camp in Vienna this week,
oh yeah, that'll be
and
good. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
I hope we will be doing a few sessions with
Yeah,
physical.
I'm sure there will be a lot a
Yeah,
lot of questions, especially after the book. I think it's going to be yeah, given that there was no book last year at Como Camp, and now there will be one with a lot of the people that are going to be attending, having read the book or at least knowing about the book, it's going to be pretty interesting.
I already ordered a whole bunch of books. I will give them for free. I will give them out for free at this
Oh,
one.
awesome! Yeah, don't make that big mistake announcing this. You're going to have a lot of people now.
I'm not yet sure what people have to do for it, but I will have quite a few books with me, and I will hand them out for free. Not
Oh
yet sure
wow!
how.
I think people are going to be asking for a signed copy. Maybe you can charge for a signature. That they can
Oh
make
yeah,
money.
that will be fine to accommodate for the cost of the
Yeah,
conference a little bit.
exactly. Uh, okay, well that's good. Yeah, I can't wait to see how that goes. And then, well, let's get to the next topic then.
Oh,
So
what's the last one?
there's a common
Oh,
question too that actually is something that ends up being work that we do for previous clients and clients that new clients that have tried event sourcing on their own, etc. It's like, what do you do for projections that have lots of data in terms of you know, let's say you're making a new version of a read model, and now you're faced with, wow, this thing's been running for 2 years. I have to replay 2 years worth of events to have this new version
millions,
work again.
millions of events. How do you replay?
Yeah, how do you deal with that?
Well, typically, it can take quite a while to build up a new projection. So I've seen projections that take days or even weeks to rebuild. My preferred approach is simply let the projection build, and as soon as they are ready, then you switch over to the new projection and use it. So it doesn't matter if it builds in the background. Let it run for a week, and if it's done, then you can start using it.
Yeah, I think the problem arises when you don't have a week and the projection is maybe someone discovered a crucial bug, and you don't have a week to you know, to spin up a new one.
Yeah.
You know, that I think is a problem.
That might be a problem. So one thing you can always do is use snapshots, but I'm really hesitant to using snapshots. So snapshots speed up projections. So if you build snapshots, you only have to project since the last snapshot. But if the bug is a crucial
Yeah,
one,
that's the problem. If the bug is there, like
then you
calculated
still
from
need
the
to
first
replay all of
event,
them.
you're gonna have a problem, right?
Yeah,
Um, so, you know, it's not. I think what people falsely assume is that they're always going to have to replay from the very first part. I mean, I don't. I think that's not the case. After 10 years, we have had very few places where we had to where we were actually seriously hindered by doing this.
yeah,
But I understand that after 15 years, we might have we might have some people that have, you know, millions, if not more, of events to replay. And one thing that we were talking about in the meetup, which went online during COVID, was thinking about closing the books, snapshots, but how you think about that, not with respect to aggregates or streams, but how you think about that from the perspective of a projection. Because, it's a fair question. Why would I let information in the system that's 2 years old um, get in the way of fixing a bug now? And so the thing that we keep talking about is uh, is closing the books, really understanding that my a trading business runs basically on a daily session. So I really don't have any events when the trading day starts the next day, at least in
Yeah.
a traditional stock market or whatever. In an online banking thing, it might be, every month when you do your bills for taxation, it's every year. So I have these natural, either time based or other properties based limits to how much you really need to know to run the business. And I think one of the interesting things is understanding that you can have a cutover to a brand new projection every time. So, for example, how do you make a read model that doesn't care about everything? So, if you have one row saying, what the total, what the total is in your account, and you have to think about all the transactions from 7 years ago till now when you opened the account. Well, a better read model might be an account and year pair. So at least you can go down to the year or the month. So instead of the one row with the account and its balance, you can have an account and year and the balance at the end of that year. So that means when you have a bug and you know that you can physically look at why the bug exists there, and it might be a feature that maybe showed some information flaw last year. That means you don't have to replay any data from any of the first 5 years now. So these
True.
are things that are not just like, oh, here's something that'll work for everything, because you have so much opinion in terms of how you treat data that you can have read models and projections that, yes, we can say that I need to replace this, but I don't need to replay everything from the beginning. And again, I can test that, like you said, blue and green. I can spin that up now because it's not all of
Yeah.
the transactions for 5 years or for the 7 years. So now my replay is much shorter, and if everything's okay, I can deploy that quite quickly. Now, if you're in a real extreme situation, you could do an update to the projection table directly because you
Of
need to
course.
fix the bug.
But that won't help long term, of course.
It won't help long term, but there is a way to then say, here's the new code for the bug, um, but we're not going to replay that. And that might be a good thing for a real isolated case where, like, hey,
Yeah.
this weird event with this weird data only happened 5 times in our history, and these are the 5 accounts that are affected. Do I really want to replay everything for it when I've
Yeah.
isolated that there's no way that this code? I mean, the read models are quite nice. They have a case statement for each type of event they're subscribing to. And if you only had 5 of these in the past, you know that code only ran for those 5 instances ever. So you just need to correct those 5 accounts. Um, it gets a little trickier when you have cross entity calculations and totals, but you always have to do this analysis. And I think an event model is the perfect thing to do that because you see exactly where the information comes from. You can make that
Absolutely.
decision for this green box that, hey, this is something that I can replace very quickly, or I need to do this hack to just change the data because it's only going to be in 5 things. And this is how I guarantee it's only going to be in those 5 accounts because of where I can see, that ability or that feature being used by these 5 people or something like that.
Yeah.
So, but the best measure is a preventative measure, and I'm always talking to people about, and it's coming up with like clients that have done things one way, and then now they want to move to a more scalable way, and you start to get performance stuff, especially in financial systems or trading systems where you have this issue that you need to now think about closing the books from a perspective of the projections, the green boxes. And you have to think about, yeah, I'd love to be able to not have to replay a million events because I really want to deploy a new version of something and have it within minutes or seconds or
Yeah.
almost instantaneously. There is an SLA you need to adhere to for your deployments. And it really means what is the amount of data that I need to um, keep or reference to make that change effectively. And so when you're talking about a trading system, you start to say, well, do I just keep reading things from 2 years ago? Probably not. You probably want to have a carryover balance, and you want to have a brand new stream, a brand new set of events, or at least conceptually have to only look back to midnight, or this event number that happens to be around midnight when we start a new trading day, and that's all I need to do that. And it might be even more. It might be you just artificially change to um, a brand new ID every 10 events, every 100 events, or whatever. Um, if it gets even worse, you might say that I'm going to have elect some of these events to be ledger events where I put in the running total into the event so that I don't
Also
have
possible.
certain automations relying on almost any projection as just looking at the last event. And I can push that
Yeah.
even further by having these things live in memory, and then have a chasing a chasing processor that makes sure, because it was in memory, I have to double check that when it was written to disk, it still makes sense. So those are things you can do, but those are extreme cases. But you can show them all in an event model, and I think you have to when you're dealing with systems like that. That is your business to execute trades within the next X amount of time,
Yeah.
to have the information be reliable. So yeah, that is not an implementation detail right now. That is a core value offering for the integrity and audit of the system, and therefore you put those in. But yeah, any other system calling out to PayPal, you probably wouldn't do that. But anyway, that's what I would
Yeah.
say with lots of data. I think it's, again, how can you limit it? Like if it's a problem that you're looking back for 7 years of data and you have to deploy something sooner than a week, then you should probably look at how do I make a better projection, and that will not make me wait a week, and the
Actually,
answer will jump out at you.
that 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 is one of the biggest complaints I hear in discussions about event sourcing, that replays take so long. And this is oftentimes just why are the streams so big? So whenever I
Yeah.
design streams, I really think about and I ask the question, what is the closing the books pattern here? It's not a technical question; it's a business question. So
Yeah.
how do you roll over into a new stream? Are there any every month, every day? How does your business work? So the business
Mhm.
experts, they can tell you how that works. It's not a technical question. That using snapshots, for example, is always a technical solution, but much better. You find the pattern how to roll over into a new stream, and then you
Yes.
don't have these streams that run over years, and then a replay. If you have replays that run within seconds, then the real magic happens. This unlocks a lot of potential.
Exactly. And so, I mean, a lot of this, if you look at it from the perspective of just having a functional approach to it, it's like, if I have everything should be able to work on all the events. But in reality, you're going to have memoization and caching and all sorts of things that help you along the way to do that.
Yeah,
Again, you have to readdress this, because when there's a bug in the calculations, that's when you really have to exercise. Well, I shouldn't have been looking at all this information. I have to make a decision. And sometimes even if you have those cutoffs, because your carryover balance is incorrect, you have no choice but to go back. And that is the nature of the bug.
yeah,
And even if you did it in the traditional way, you'd have the same problem, but it would be buried even worse in old legacy code and all that. You'd actually have a worse situation on your hands with a traditional system. So some people say, well, that's a problem with event sourcing because you have to like replay all these things. Imagine if the source of your bug goes back to 7 years and you have a traditional system and you have to uncover and dig out why the hell that failed. No thanks.
you're just one update statement away from fixing it, right? No problem.
Yeah, no. That's I would say that some of those are impossible to
Yeah,
fix.
absolutely. Yeah,
Compared to event modeling makes it all accessible because, or event sourcing makes it all accessible because you have the audit of how you got to every single place ever. Um, and even when you make the shortcut with a snapshot, or you make the logical decision to cut over to um, a new ID, a new stream, or whatever concept you want to talk about, you have the reference back. Even if you made a mistake in that, you can find a way out of it. There's like, it's kind of like how I like using Linux compared to a closed source operating system. No matter how hard it seems that Linux takes a little bit longer to set up, I know that if I'm determined to find a bug and fix something, I can. Everything is there. It's
yeah.
open source. It's, I had a tablet that was new and there was no Linux driver for it. I took the open source driver and I edited it to include the model number for mine,
Oh
increase the number
wow,
of buttons
that's
on my
crazy.
tablet, and deploy it.
Yeah,
I didn't have to wait for some company to be so nice to me to ship a new version of a thing. It just did it. I have it. Like, that's the same feeling I get from event sourcing. I have the info. I can go back. I can correct that bug. Nothing is stopping me. With a traditional system, and I have this thing going back, and I remember this in real examples of asking the DBA for, okay, I need the last 2 GB of production data because I still have references that are dropping and not being fulfilled in the legacy code. Okay, the next day I would go back and debug. I'd get, another, half a day of debugging further into the system. And the same thing would happen. Boom, reference not found, record doesn't exist. I'm like, crap, I should ask for the next 8 GB of production data. Go to DBA.
yeah.
I need eight.
How
On
much
and
do
on.
you get? How much do you get from the DBA? At some point, he will say
Oh my
no,
God.
no more.
I never ever want to work that way again. And I think when you're talking about, the too much data to run a projection, think about the flip side. If you don't have that data or can't use that data, that's much worse. So there's
Yeah,
a very simple answer for dealing with, these things that, like, hey, I don't have a week to wait for this thing. Okay, think about your closing of the books, but from the perspective of a green box. How can this green box now listen to only more recent events? How can I'm going to be discussing a lot more of this with Chris Condren. How do we have these dynamic, boundaries for transactional boundaries so that we can not have to look at everything and not have to have a predetermined aggregate or whatever? How can we now say that I have a green box that has a much better index where I can look at the last 10, and so my deployment will never have to run through 10 years of data. It'll run through a week of data,
yeah,
and I have it under a second, and I don't care. It's longer than me to it's shorter time than it takes me to press a couple of keystrokes. So I'm real time for this blue green deploy on that. And that's the wonderful thing about it. And so I think the greater question is really the disadvantage is not having a projection, being able to look back 10 years and with 100% certainty say that this is what the value should be. I think people see it as like a problem. I think it's a blessing. I think it's
yeah. It is.
the accountability is like the flip side is worse, right? Oh, I can do a blue green deploy in a second, but I have no clue how to fix the bug. I'm just kludging things to make things work for the next user, and I don't know if I fixed it or not.
I mean, the argument is really always, oh, I can fix it easily. I just need to update the database. But what
Yeah,
you do forget is, first, you don't understand where the bug is coming from, and second, you don't understand where this wrong data is used. It's used everywhere, so you can't simply
yeah.
update the data without understanding. There is no fixing, in my opinion.
No, and unit tests won't save you for this. You
No,
cannot guarantee you have 100%
no.
coverage. Not only that, but you can't even guarantee that your unit tests don't have bugs themselves. Maybe that bug is because there's a bug in a unit test. Who knows?
Just
Which
write
version of
back.
the unit test? I
Just
don't know. There's some data that was written when the software was at version 2 versions back 3 years ago. Now do I have to go back to source control and see what that was?
Yeah, but
No.
unit tests they capture logic errors, but they don't capture data errors. Most of this time,
Yeah, but that's the same. If there's a logic error, that's captured as data because the data's false back in the day, and that's been propagated as the current balance for later when the logic is correct or different.
yeah,
That's a friggin' puzzle. That's horrible.
yeah,
So yeah, people complaining about this takes a long time for projection. Yeah, optimize it, but there's no way that going back to a non-event source system is in the same league of of being of addressing the core issues and doing that. There's no way that any amount of testing will save you from that. That's why I always say, anytime I will take event sourcing. Given a gun to my head, I'll take event sourcing over unit test. I will throw away every single unit test in a drop of a hat to just have all the events ever. There's just no comparison. The traceability, the counting of what happened, I'm willing to read the code without a unit test to understand what's going on. But
yeah.
vice versa, no way.
There was an article written 2 weeks ago in German about event sourcing, and there are about, I think by now it's 110 comments, and basically everything we just discussed is there in the comments. Maybe we should take this apart in one of the upcoming podcast episodes and just
Yeah,
look at these
let's do that
comments
next week. I think that would
and,
be
and
really
take them
cool.
apart. I will prepare this. We should do that because everything we just discussed, long projections takes too long. It's too complicated. Everything is in there, and this is really
Oh, we
all.
can rip it apart.
Yeah, we should do
Absolutely.
that. We do that.
I think people that come that the problem with people making such criticism is that it's from a point of view of a baby duck syndrome, which is like, I'm new to this, so I feel very uncomfortable. But the lack of self like analysis of like, yeah, what we have currently is we're really familiar with a very bad way of working, but we have so much tooling and so much confidence that feels less risky to us.
Yeah,
But yeah, that article should be, and it's very easy. It's like anyone can kick a new idea, like to them that's new to them, and
yeah,
criticize it. It's cheap, it's free, and they're all tire kickers because none of them have spent 10 years doing event sourcing. They haven't
you
been in
can
that world. So
you
I
can
can
tell
tell.
from the
I
comments.
never lived in Germany, so I think Germany sucks because their trains aren't on time. Whatever, right? Like,
That's
I don't
true.
know.
But you can tell
I
from the
think it's a
comments.
wonder. But you living there, it's really good. You have a really good medical system. It's like you have amazing cars, and there's so many really good things. But nah, I don't want to be late for work because of your trains.
Yeah,
That's the
and you
equivalent, right?
you can tell from the comments that most of them have never worked with event source systems. That it's just
Yeah.
things they read and things they have an opinion on, but they have never worked with event source. You can tell that immediately.
Yeah.
I don't need, but let's do that next week. Let's take this apart. This is really
Yeah, I
interesting.
like it. I mean, part of the challenge of working in a better, newer way, and this happened to Agile too, right? I mean, it happens to all things. It's happening to AI now. It's like, oh, AI sucks. It's hallucinating. It's like, doesn't hallucinate to me
Yeah,
90% of the time. Somehow I have given it enough scope to not hallucinate, and it's actually very productive for me. And so, but yeah, do it a traditional way, it's going to be bad. So I think, yeah, it's a common thing. And as event sourcing people, and in anything that's moving forward, and you're trying to move the ball forward, I got criticized for it. Like, hey, I think it was Alexei that wrote one of the domain-driven design event sourcing books. He said, "Why are you on Reddit talking, injecting your opinion about event sourcing being a solution for some other problem when they're not talking about it?" It's like, I need the training for these objections. I want I want to have an answer for someone as a consultant, etc.
yeah,
I don't want to have to go back to a client and say, I don't know, I didn't think about that. It's like,
yeah,
no, I've thought about this and I've answered all of these objections over the last 10 years in all these forums, in all these settings, in all these types of projects. This is how you do it.
yeah.
I want to say that in one sentence. So we should never shy away. And so when I tell, that's what I told Alexei. It's like, I'm doing this as high altitude training, not because I want to troll people or I want to be in confrontations. I truly want to be challenged. I want you to say, like, yeah, event sourcing is bad. I have not sensed that. I have not experienced that. So maybe even though I have 10 years of experience or more, 15 years of experience with event sourcing, maybe I am missing something. So show me. I'll give you the benefit of the doubt that I'm missing something here, how this is worse. And this is, we have to be, if you're doing something, you have to be brave. You have to get this yourself. You have to have those, civil discussions with like why something, why someone will have, a disagreement with you. So like brand new people starting out with event sourcing, you're going to go through the trenches because right now there is a whole bunch of people that don't want to work in a new way, like regardless if it's event sourcing or not. They have their relational database, single model. This is how you do foreign keys, and this is forms over data, and even really famous guys like DHH from the Ruby on Rails community doesn't want anything to do with event sourcing, even though it's simpler than forms over data. It would be one switch in his head, but he refuses. He's got enough of a speed at which he can deploy forms over data over tables with active record, and he'll die on that hill. Hopefully not. I mean, he's changed his idea between going from MacBook to Linux and all that, which is great. So maybe I'm wrong. Maybe he will see the light at some point and switch to event sourcing because it's better, right? So having him being like the godfather of the coffee shop developer on a MacBook turn to Linux, okay, maybe he has enough of an open mind to adopt event sourcing. Right? I don't know.
Yeah,
but we're in that kind of spot. Like eventually things give up. And I think event sourcing, like open source, is this one-way switch where people, it's a one-way street. It's the matrix. It's kind of like taking the red pill, seeing the truth. And once you're on the other side, you can't go back. I mean, Martin, I can't convince you to stop doing event sourcing now. I know that I can't. I mean, I could. You'd laugh at me because I'm lying, right? First of all, like it's the forms over data. It's better. It's a one-way street. Anyone that tries to tell you to do something else now, you can't, right? With moral integrity, that you can't treat information in a disrespectful way, so that people's systems have all these problems, right?
Yeah.
So I don't know. I think that's a good way to kind of end on that. But it's really, you will have problems with replaying a lot of events, and yes, it's pretty silly to have to make a blue-green deploy wait a week, especially if you're dealing with bugs. But does that mean that it stays that way? No, you can fix that right away. You have no limit to fix that problem. In the traditional system, if that bug is in data 9 years ago, good luck to you.
Nice closing words, I think.
Yeah.
I think there's nothing more to add here.
Yeah. So, okay. Awesome episode.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. I want to discuss that article where we can do that. Maybe even post it in a Discord. Maybe some other people have some more criticisms or answers to add, and we can aggregate them for everyone here to listen to what the community had to say, what we had to say about the people that are still negative on event sourcing somehow in this day, in this age of AI, when information is gold. some people still have a problem. So anyway, it'll be pretty cool.
To get some more comments, I just need to post on LinkedIn tomorrow. Event sourcing is better than CRUD. Fight me. I will get all the comments.
Yeah, that's fine. I mean, the trolls will come out, and that's good.
I had a nice discussion with Allard from Exonic about this. He also does this. He also posts from time to time.
Yes, he does this FUD. He does the Friday event sourcing Friday FUD. His awesome. So I actually asked him to to do a live stream. So I'm going to do a live stream with him. I think this Thursday or this Wednesday. So
Nice.
yeah, by the time people hear this episode, they probably will already have the recording from the from the live stream. Maybe you can join us. I don't know if you have time, but we can maybe have a discussion with him together.
Very nice.
I know you're busy during the week, so I don't want to impose. But if you have time, that'd be kind of cool.
For that, I'm always open.
Okay, yeah, because there's a lot of good stuff coming from Axon, Axon IQ. So you got the dynamic
consistency boundary.
Yeah. So it's because we have designed by contract, and we have then we have bounded contexts. So these acronyms are just like swimming in my head, and even though I know what I want to say, I can't because I have the other one in my head too. So try not to talk about acronyms anymore. Yeah, dynamic consistency boundaries, and designed by contract, and so many things in my, especially that's in this space. They ended up being such similar acronyms that it just throws me. But anyway, so that's going to be a fun week. And yeah, thank you for the time. This is going to be a two-parter. So if you're listening to this, you probably already listened to the first part, and we'll see you all in the week again. So Martin, thanks a lot. All the best this week, and I'm looking forward to the workshop. So
absolutely.
Yeah. All right.
All right.
See you, everyone. Thank you. Bye.